We are live, and we got a recommendation by Grok. So let's look into this. Agnes Martin. Agnes Martin, Canadian American abstract painter, widely regarded as one of the most important figures in the 20th century minimal and abstract art. Maclean, Saskatchewan, Canada, spent early years in rural Canada. Died in New Mexico, USA. United States in the early 1930s, eventually becoming a US citizen in 1950. Wow. US citizen in 1950. So this is what's happening. Like even the Canadians, even the top Canadians, they move to US because that's where the opportunity's at. And this person did that. Like Agnes did that in 1930s. So really cool. But yeah, she got her US citizenship too late. I don't know what was happening. What was the immigration situation back then? But it seems like it was pretty much the same thing. There was a guy who wanted to mix Canada and America, wanted to unite it. Often labeled as minimalist, Martin preferred to be associated with abstract expressionism. Renowned for its subtlety, stillness, and meditative simplicity, her signature works feature grids and faint lines. It's very interesting to not look at the art first, just understand everything, and then look into the art. So we kind of can just read right now, and I can just create an image of what this would look like in my head, and then we can see the art and see like if that matches what I had in my head. That would be cool. Okay. Feature grids and faint lines often on square canvases, creating compositions that feel quite luminous and expansive. She used muted colors, white, grays, pastel, and delicate pencil or acrylic lines to evoke emotion without direct representation. Her work balances geometry with the imperfection of the hand, blending precision with humanity. Something that transcends physical forms, intending her work to express inner state, strong tranquility, and emotional clarity, rather than depict the outside world. First major solo show was in 1957 in New York City. She lived and worked both in New York's avant-garde scene and later in Taos, New Mexico, where much of her iconic work was created. Wow, her paintings and they're moving to New York City. That's where it's happening. That's where it's happening. The best people move to New York City. They are over there where all the innovation is happening. Her paintings are held in major museums worldwide, including MoMA and the Whitney Museum. Retrospectives of her work have been mounted in major institutions like the Tate Modern and Guggenheim Museum. Intensely private and philosophical, she explored Zen Buddhism and Taoism, and her art reflects those spiritual learnings. She withdrew from the New York art world at times to live in solitude, believing that art arises from inner vision and quiet mind. Inner vision and quiet mind. This is very interesting. Yeah. Martin grappled with mental health challenges throughout her life, which influenced her temperament and work rhythms. Quotes from her. Quotes are interesting because now we are getting into okay. Alright, ChatGPT just gave us the art. Wow. Wow. It would be very interesting for people to look at this art and be like, so am I paying for this? That's something that my kid can make. This is very interesting. Okay. Art is the concrete representation of her most subtle feelings. Happiness is the goal of life. The work is not about ideas, it's about feelings. The work is not about ideas, it's about feelings. Beauty is the mystery of life. It is not in the eye, it is in the mind. My paintings are not about what is seen, they are about what is known forever in the mind. Anything can be painted without representation. I paint with my back to the world. Inspiration is unexplainable and comes in a moment of clarity. The function of art is the renewal of the mind. The function of art is the renewal of mind. The function of art is the renewal of the mind. A work of art is successful when it conveys a feeling. work of art is successful when it conveys a feeling. Oh my god. It is commonly thought that everything that is can be put into words. Art is the concrete representation of our most subtle feelings. My paintings are not about what is seen, they are about what is known forever in the mind. Anything can be painted without representation. Inspiration is there all the time for everyone whose mind is not clouded over with thoughts, whether they realize it or not. What we really want to do is serve happiness. We want everyone to be happy, never unhappy, even for a moment. We want the animals to be happy. The happiness of every living thing is what we want. Concrete representation of our most subtle feelings. We don't want quotes, we just want Agnes Martin. Really cool. Really cool. Such a beautiful photo. Beauty is in your mind, not in the rose. It's in your mind, not in the rose. Date Modern on the Art channel. This is like gold plating going on, some sort of gold plating going on. Oh wow, this looks like denim. Mystery of Agnes Martin. What is that? What does that mean? Grew up in rural Canada. Saskatchewan into a family of farmers. Her father passed away when she was just 2 years old. The girl had to live with her mother, whom she described as cold and hateful, using silence as her main weapon against her own child. Growing up in the countryside, had a tough upbringing, and was able to survive in isolated areas on her own. She loved swimming. She even got into the Canadian Olympic team but could not afford to travel to Europe to participate in the competition. So, after turning 19, she decided to separate from her family and move to the United States. Baker, playground director and a warden of a penal institution for boys, always feeling an inclination towards art, she studied to become an art teacher and worked in several public schools around the country. She started as a landscape painter. There was a change in the career of Agnes Martin after she moved to New York. After years of working as an art teacher, she was finally exposed to the city's avant-garde art scene. So Martin decided she could become an artist herself. At the same time, she started attending lectures on Zen Buddhism, deeply relating to its ideas of universal harmony. That spiritual component would remain in her works throughout years and genres. She started her career as a painter of semi abstract landscapes inspired by her native Canada and New Mexico. Gradually, her works became less and less anchored in reality. For 20 years, she worked while searching for a unique style, looking for a way toward pure abstraction that was entirely disconnected from the material world. Every time the work did not fit Martin's expectations, she would slash it with a knife and paint all over it until the result was right. Not many of her earlier work survive since she was ruthlessly destroying everything that did not line up with her vision. Work was noticed by the famed art collector and dealer Betty Parsons, was one of the most influential people in the art world at the time. Interesting. That tells us we need to look into someone. Parsons was one of the most influential people in the art world at the time. She was the one who promoted the work of Jackson Pollock and Mark Rothko, among others. Jackson Pollock. Whoa, 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 whoa. Jackson Pollock. 16. What do we get? Jackson Pollock. It's a mess, but it's a beautiful mess. He stepped on his own painting. Jackson Pollock. Abstract expressionism. Drip technique. Instead of using traditional easel and brush methods, he placed large canvas on the floor and drip poured and splattered paint moving around and within the work, treating the canvas as an arena for action rather than depiction. Process and movement, capturing emotion and subconscious energy through sweeping gestures and complex layers of paint. First American artist recognized internationally as a peer of major European modernists. What happened to these links? Why are they so weird? Anyways, now it works. New York at the Art Students League under Thomas Hart Benton and was influenced by Mexican muralist surrealism and ideas about automatism, creative expression without conscious control. Automatism. Married artist Lee Krasner, who was a major influence on his career. His life was marked by volatility and struggles with alcoholism. He died in a car crash at age 44. Without conscious control. Creative method where the artist bypasses conscious control and lets the subconscious mind guide the work. This is very interesting. Like, how do you let the subconscious, how do you let this subconscious, how do you bypass the conscious control? How do you let the subconscious mind guide the work? That only happens when you, that doesn't happen with, when you have constraints, when you have too many constraints. I don't know. It feels like when you have too many constraints, you can't make that happen. You don't want constraints. You want freedom. Like what Jackson Pollock was doing, he was moving around on his own canvas, on his own painting. And that is something that you can't really do if you just have a monitor and a computer. This is the reason why I love writing, because writing is one of those formats which we don't do anymore, which we don't do anymore. And that is where you have true freedom of just playing with your, you can use that entire piece of paper. Very interesting. You let the hand move before the mind judges. The goal is to surface thoughts, forms, and energies that logic would normally censor. Surface thoughts, forms, and energies the logic would normally censor. Origins central to surrealism in the 1920s, championed by Andre Breton, who saw automatism as a way to access psychic truth. Early practitioners include Andre Mason and Juan Miro. Okay, this is cool that ChatGPT has made this thing. Manifeste du surréalisme. Poisson. Poisson soluble. Automatic drawing. Pen moves without intention. This is also interesting, yeah. We have lost the art of letting the subconscious mind do the work, letting the subconscious mind guide the work. Gestural painting, movement leads, meaning follows. Movement leads, meaning follows. Wow, wow, wow. This is exactly like with every activity, even with gym. The real work is just showing up to the gym and starting that first exercise, because once you start that first thing, meaning follows, and you're just there. And now you're like, let's just keep going. Writing without premeditation, writing without premeditation. Connection to modern art. Automatism strongly influenced abstract expressionism. Jackson Pollock transformed automatism into large scale physical action. His drip paintings are automatism amplified by the body. Automatism amplified by the body was a French poet, essayist, and theorist best known for as the founder and primary leader of the Surrealist movement. His writings, including the 1924 Manifeste du Surrealisme, defines surrealism as pure psychic automatism, uniting art, psychology, and politics in a search for the liberation of the human mind. Tinchebray, France, died in Paris, France. Manifeste du Surrealisme, L'amour fou, movement, surrealism, early Dada, French Communist Party, co-authored Manifesto for Independent Revolutionary Art. Sigmund Freud, during World War One. Sigmund Freud keeps coming up. We looked into Carl Jung, but I think Sigmund Freud is interesting because I think he's very much focused on logic, and Carl Jung is very much focused on just that internal sense. Fascination with the unconscious. Early collaborations with Louis Aragon and Philippe Soupault led to Les Champs Magnétiques, the first major example of automatic writing. His break from Dadaism marked the formal birth of Surrealism, Surrealist leadership and writings. Brennan conceived surrealism as a synthesis of dream and reality into absolute reality. Surrealité. He published three Manifestes du Surrealisme texts in novels such as Naja, which fused autobiography with hallucination. His theoretical volumes, Le Surrealisme et la peinture, Les Vases Communicantes, explore correspondence between poetry, art, and psychoanalysis. Theoretical volumes. Politics, exile, and later life, politically radical, sought to link artistic freedom with revolutionary ideals. After joining and later leaving the Communist Party, he collaborated in Mexico with Trotsky on an appeal for independent art during the Nazi occupation of France. He fled to the United States, continued writing and curating until his death. Insistence on automatism, dream logic, and intellectual rigor made surrealism a lasting global avant-garde, influencing painters such as Salvador Dali, wow, Juan Miró, and Max Ernst, as well as later movements from abstract expressionism. I'm interested in looking at Sigmund Freud. I want to look into the volumes that he talked about. Le surréalisme et la peinture. Austrian neurologist and the founder of psychoanalysis. Understand the unconscious mind, desire, memory, and human behavior. Much of what drives us is unconscious. Wow. Very radical. Even today, it's radical because you don't know. You don't even know. Like, most people don't even know the difference between subconscious and conscious. What is conscious? What is subconscious? So, this is not even today, it's radical. It's crazy. Okay. Foundation not just for psychology but for art, literature, philosophy, and modern culture. Key ideas: the unconscious thoughts, memories, and desires we are unaware of, but which shape behavior. Free association, speaking without filtering, a verbal form of automatism. Thoughts, the unconscious thoughts, memories, and desires we are unaware of, but which shape behavior. Free association, speaking without filtering, a verbal form of automatism. A verbal form of automatism. Very interesting, very interesting. This is basically what we are doing right now. We're just like going with the flow and seeing where this all ends up. Dream analysis: dreams as symbolic expression of unconscious conflict. Wow, wow, wow. That's very interesting. This is a conversation. This is a very interesting conversation. And it was very interesting to explore this with Grok. I think Grok, I love the fact that Grok exists, and Grok is all about that truth. So you can, and also Grok is not very much like, oh, if you talk about this, I cannot respond or something like that. It talks about hard, difficult things. So that is very interesting. And there were many instances where it's like, okay, um, I had this dream. What does that tell? What is the meaning? Why did that have that dream? And it clearly says that, oh, it's because you are feeling some sort of, you are not able to truly express yourself. And that's what showed up in your dreams. So dreams are interesting. Dream analysis: dreams as symbolic expressions of unconscious conflict. ID: ego, superego. Instinct: desire, ego, reality. Mediation: superego. Morality: internalized authority, superego. Morality: internalized authority. Reality: mediation, instinct, desire. Repression: the mind actively hides threatening material, often at a cost. Freud and art. Freud didn't create art, but he made modern art possible. Surrealists used Freud to justify automatism, automatism. This is also very interesting. You have artists, you have philosophers, you have everything. Wow. Surrealists used Freud to justify automatism. Automatism. Artists stopped depicting the world and started depicting the psyche. Wow. Very interesting. Artists stopped depicting the world that you can see with reality, but your psyche, what your art is basically what's going on in your mind. It's the physical, it's again what Agnes Martin said. It's kind of the physical representation, it's the physical manifestation of your thoughts, of your subtle feelings, of your psyche, what goes on in your mind. Abstract expressionism turned the unconscious into gesture and movement. Abstract abstract expressionism 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 expressionism. My French and English are now getting together. Abstract expressionism 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 via Pollock turned the unconscious into gesture and movement. Freud: surrealism, automatism, 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 automatism. Abstract expressionism, abstract expressionism, 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 automatism, automatism. That's the lineage. Wow, wow. It's interesting. Like, if you speak too much French, it's messed up now. Okay. The honest legacy. Many theories are scientifically disputed today, culturally unavoidable. We still think in Freudian terms: repression, ego, slips, childhood conditioning. Taught the modern world one dangerous idea: you are not fully in control of yourself. Wow. How these ideas quietly power elite creativity and myth making today. La révolution surréaliste. Surréaliste. Wow. Et the essai majeur, de André Breton qui pose les fondations théoriques du surréalisme en peinture. Idée centrale. La peinture ne doit plus représenter le monde visible, mais révéler le fonctionnement réel de la pensée, en particulier l'inconscient. Thèse clé. Primauté de l'automatisme. Primauté. Primauté. What is primauté? Primacy. Le geste doit précéder l'intention. L'artiste laisse la main agir avant l'esprit critique. Le geste must precede the intention. Doit précéder l'intention. L'intention. L'artiste laisse la main agir avant l'esprit critique. Réfuter la composition académique, perspective, harmonie, narration, logique, obstacle à la vérité psychique. Peinture comme expérience mentale. Le tableau est une trace d'un état intérieur, pas une image décorative. Peinture comme expérience mentale. Revue de la composition académique, perspective, harmonie, narration logique, obstacle à la vérité psychique. Peinture comme expérience mentale. Peinture comme expérience mentale. Le tableau est une trace d'un état intérieur par une image décorative. Alliance avec Freud, rêve, association libre, image mentale deviennent des sources légitimes de création. Artiste mise en avant. Put in before, came in before. Highlighted, mise en avant. André Masson, dessin automatique. Juan Miro, signe, constellation mentale. Max Ernst, frottage, décalcomanie. Whoa, you didn't translate it. Frottage, c'est quoi frottage? Décalcomanie. Pourquoi ce texte est crucial et légitime? L'inconscient comme moteur de la peinture. Il œuvre un chemin direct avec l'action painting et Jackson Pollock. Il transforme l'artiste en canal, pas en contrôleur. Into a channel, not a controller. Il transforme l'artiste en canal, pas en contrôleur. Une phrase, l'esprit du livre. La peinture devient un acte de connaissance intérieure, non une démonstration de savoir-faire. La peinture devient un acte de connaissance intérieure, non une démonstration de savoir-faire. Wow. Act of inner knowledge, not a demonstration of skill. Wow. La peinture devient un acte de connaissance intérieure, non une démonstration de savoir-faire. Wow. I'm surprised it didn't give me any links. Give me the contexte. Né de Dada. Le surréalisme est une scission du dadaïsme né après la Première Guerre mondiale pour questionner la logique et l'absurdité. L'inconscient freudien fortement influencé par la psychanalyse de Freud, le mouvement cherche à libérer l'esprit par le rêve, l'hypnose et l'automatisme technique, utilisation du hasard, dessin automatique, collage, frottage pour créer des images inattendues, thème, rêve, imagination, phénomène extraordinaire, déformation d'objets, création d'objets surréalistes, exposition à la galerie surréaliste, présenter des peintures de Montréal et des objets trouvés, objets sauvages avec un texte de catalogue revendiquant une profondeur historique et littéraire, affirmation de la peinture. L'exposition de 1925 avait déjà affirmé l'existence de la peinture surréaliste avec des artistes comme Max Ernst Miro, Klee, Picasso, Man Ray, Masson et de Chirico. Breton à la direction, André Breton prend la direction de la révolution surréaliste et publie des chroniques qui formeront plus tard le livre Le surréalisme et la peinture. Quelques grands noms et les contributeurs. D'accord, d'accord. Intéressant. Intéressant. Wow. Pour une nouvelle esthétique surréaliste, Université Laval, Mémoire, Émilie Saint-Pierre, Québec, Canada, sous la directrice de recherche. Résumé ce mémoire a pour sujet d'étude le surréalisme et la peinture d'André Breton. Nous cherchons à montrer de quelle manière Breton redéfinit le mouvement surréaliste à la lumière des arts visuels. Nous avons pour postulat qu'il s'agit du texte central de Breton pour comprendre la peinture surréaliste et qu'il pourrait même s'agir là de manifester la peinture surréaliste. Nous étudions de quelle manière Breton s'inscrit dans une lignée d'écrivains qui abordent les arts visuels dans leurs textes et qu'il fait cela tout en se détachant des critiques d'art de son époque. Nous croyons que le surréalisme et la peinture est un texte qui allie à la fois un discours critique et poétique. De plus, en nous penchant sur d'autres textes sur l'art de Breton, nous montrons l'évolution de ses idées sur les arts visuels. Nous nous penchons, nous nous penchons, nous nous penchons. Nous nous penchons aussi sur des concepts comme le modèle intérieur et l'automatisme pour comprendre avec quels paramètres Breton tente de définir la peinture surréaliste. La prose poétique passe insoluble, la critique en tant qu'artiste pour une esthétique de surréalisme et de la peinture. L'automatisme, la peinture surréaliste, il manifeste la peinture. Oh, je voudrais lire cette page. La peinture surréaliste en 1941, dès le milieu des années, dès le milieu des années 1930 et en 1941, Breton va peu à peu changer le discours qu'il tenait sur l'automatisme et les arts visuels. Il acceptait l'existence de techniques picturales automatiques. Ce changement se manifeste clairement dans son texte des tendances les plus récentes de la peinture surréaliste publié en 1939 où il écrit c'est seulement 15 ans après le manifeste de surréalisme concluant à la nécessité de sa mise en œuvre passionnée que l'automatisme absolu fait son apparition. Mise en œuvre. Implementation. Absolu fait son apparition sur le plan plastique. C'est seulement 15 ans après le manifeste de surréalisme concluant à la nécessité de sa mise en œuvre passionnée que l'automatisme absolu fait son apparition sur le plan plastique. Plan plastique, c'est quoi plan plastique? Fait un constant qu'il n'a encore jamais fait dans ce texte alors que pendant les années 1920, il était réticent à nommer l'automatisme comme une technique faisant partie des arts visuels et qu'il rejetait Même cette possibilité, il n'hésite pas au début de son texte à nommer l'automatisme comme étant absolument peinturé comme une technique réellement utilisée par les artistes. Dans Jeunesse et perspective artistique du surréalisme écrit en 1941, Breton fait état des origines et des avancements de la peinture surréaliste et propose un bilan des arts. Un bilan des arts plastique surréaliste, ce texte qui reproduit de nombreuses œuvres surréalistes, tout comme dans le surréalisme et la peinture, convoque des nouvelles techniques de création surréaliste ainsi que plusieurs nouveaux peintres qui n'étaient pas mentionnés dans le texte des années 1920, comme dans les Magritte et Mata. Dans ce texte plus près d'un bilan sur l'art que de la prose poétique, Breton revient sur certaines idées formulées dans le surréalisme et la peinture, comme le conflit des artistes entre le modèle intérieur et extérieur, où auparavant, au début du XXe siècle, l'artiste restait prisonnier de la perception externe et n'envisageait aucun moyen d'évasion. Il situe encore une fois le début de l'histoire de la peinture surréaliste au début du XXe siècle, avec comme point de départ le malentendu entre le modèle extérieur et intérieur. Pour illustrer son propos, Breton utilise une image à laquelle il a déjà eu recours dans le surréalisme et la peinture, soit celle d'Alice au pays des merveilles, alors qu'il écrivait en 1928 que grâce à l'œuvre Homme à la clarinette de Picasso, chacun est en mesure d'accompagner un toujours plus belle Alice au pays des merveilles. Il écrit en 1941 l'art d'imitation dont l'ambition était de fixer les aspects du monde extérieur ne pouvait manquer de succomber à ses attaques. Au bout de ce chemin je pense que c'est sémé d'embûches réelles. Hmm. Sémé, fölvet, d'embûches réelles. Il y a la traversée du miroir par Alice. Breton établit en 1941 que les défis qui sont posés pendant les années 1920 étaient relevés et que le passage au-delà d'un modèle extérieur et de la reproduction de réel a été fait et le miroir a maintenant été traversé. Les artistes créés depuis lors à partir du modèle intérieur appelé par Breton dans le surréalisme et la peinture, ils sont donc passés d'un référent extérieur à un référent intérieur, soit l'imagination. Ils sont de l'autre côté du miroir dans un autre monde où plusieurs possibilités s'offrent à eux. Les remises en question du début du XXe siècle ont, selon Breton, eu raison de modèle extérieur. Breton récapitule l'histoire de l'art depuis le début du siècle et regrette que les avant-gardes artistiques d'avant-guerre, dont le cubisme, le futurisme, se soient toujours référés à un modèle extérieur malgré la nouveauté de les propositions. Puis est venu Dada et enfin le surréalisme. Breton aborde alors les techniques surréalistes utilisées pour créer, pour créer dans le domaine des arts visuels. Le surréalisme a d'emblée trouvé son compte d'emblée from the outset dans les collages de 1920 dans lequel se traduit une proposition d'organisation visuelle absolument vierge mais correspondant à ce qui a été voulu en poésie par Lautréamont et Rimbaud. Breton semble maintenir ici, tout comme dans caractère de l'évolution moderne, et ce qui en participe une distinction entre la poésie et la peinture dont les découvertes avant-gardistes ne se sont pas produites au même moment chez Lautréamont et Rimbaud. En poésie, ces changements se sont faits d'abord par un abandon des règles de versification et l'utilisation du verre libre. Ces changements ont eu lieu à la fin du XXIXe siècle et coïncident avec l'apparition du symbolisme et d'autres mouvements poétiques avant-gardistes, tandis que la peinture symboliste à la même époque demeure malgré tout figurative alors que la poésie s'affranchit des règles formelles. La peinture devient aussi moins académique, plus expressionniste, mais demeure très liée au modèle extérieur ou liée au réel. Selon Breton, ce retard de la peinture sur la poésie pourrait s'expliquer par les moyens utilisés et les outils nécessaires à la création. Par exemple, la peinture est soumise au marché de l'art contrairement au poète, une distinction que Breton avait déjà fait dans Distance. Cette distinction entre l'avant-garde poétique et picturale expliquerait non seulement son hésitation à caractériser la peinture surréaliste comme automatique, mais montrerait aussi les raisons pour lesquelles le surréalisme a d'abord été un mouvement poétique plutôt que plastique. Wow, we're getting too. Okay, let's continue with Agnes Martin. She was part of the abstract expressionist scene. Her works were much more subtle in color than those of her colleagues. Her deep connection to music, she enjoyed almost all genres and frequently made parallels with visual arts and music. True and pure emotion from music but demands explanation from art. Therefore, we can try to observe her paintings as if they were musical pieces, dealing with pure emotion that could hardly be translated into words. Minimalist movement partly because her association with some of the artists of the circle, however, this attribution would oversimplify the fluidity and nuance, the lightness and intangibility disconnect her from the rest of the minimalist artists who were focused on immovable and rigid forms. Any sort of art historical influence, an act of creation was supposed to be entirely and deeply individualistic, based on the artist's inner turmoil and personality. For that reason, it is hard to discuss possible points of influence from Martin. However, some experts believe that seeing the work of Mark Rothko and Barnett Newman crucial for a departure to complete abstraction and grid-like structures. Simple but highly complicated techniques behind seemingly flat and uniform surfaces capture the subtlety and precision of the tones she used. No reproduction or photograph could capture the subtlety and precision of the tone she used. She worked slowly and never knew what was going to happen next. Every morning she sat on a rocking chair in her studio and looked at the canvas in front of her, waiting for an image to appear in her mind. The images that appeared in her head were the size of tiny post-its. Martin then drew them in her notebook and scaled them up to fit onto the canvas. The scaling process was complex. Martin used mathematical formulas to make sure the optical effects would translate perfectly from one size to another. By making oil paintings or abstract works were mostly made with acrylics. Gradually, she added graphite and wax pencils to line her grids. Sometimes would use masking tape to achieve precise lines. She preferred the natural fluidity of the hand. Natural fluidity of the hands. She created a series of work entirely covered with gold leaves, including Night Sea and Friendship. Until this day, I have no idea how she could afford such an expensive material in large quantities. hated coming up with the titles. Creative energy into writing, yet the outcomes were drastically different. Hated talking about her paintings and strongly opposed naming them. The origin of the happy holiday. Weren't even made by Martin. Had a mental breakdown caused by her schizophrenia. To fund a private psychiatrist for Martin, her friend Robert Indiana arranged several exhibitions of her works. He had to title the works to facilitate sales. Private psychiatrist for Martin, her friend Robert arranged several exhibitions of her works. For these occasions, he had to title the works to facilitate sales. A friend of Martin's brought her little daughter to visit the artist's studio. The girl asked why the paintings had no names and offered her help in naming them. The weird and childish names of some of Martin's works from the period, including I Love the Whole World and Happy Holiday. I Love the Whole World. She abandoned the art world when she was 55. This is good. Her fourth exhibition happened when she was 46, 10 years into her artistic career. She would abruptly leave her studio, either giving away or destroying most of her work and painting supplies. She was going camping and had plans to visit her native Canada. In reality, she settled in a house she went to New Mexico and focused on writing poetry. Spent 7 years on hiatus with no TV or radio. Wow. She received several exhibition offers and started making interesting. Started making occasional public appearances. Maureen never truly returned to her old city life. Gradually did reinstall herself in the art world. Her age and deteriorating mental health made it easier to remain in her safe space. Give lectures on various topics. Mental health after being diagnosed with schizophrenia. Apart from diagnosis, she was known to be a woman in need of her personal space. One of the reasons for this was her sexuality, which she preferred to hide from the outside while never opening her about her lesbian relationships. Mentor of many young artists, she sometimes gave lectures on the importance of solitude for pure artistic expression. She also spoke about happiness and inspiration, as well as the dangers of falling prey to greed and vanity. Her lectures were mostly not practical but philosophical. They relied heavily on the idea of entering the right state of mind that will allow one to create freely. She never equated artistic practice to seclusion and isolation from reality. She once shared that it was better to go to the beach and think about painting than paint and think about going to the beach. In her later years, Martin lived isolated, troubled by her worsening mental health. She continued to live in New Mexico in a house she built for herself, occasionally traveling around the USA. Exhibit her work. Passed away in 2004 at the age 92, she continued painting until her very last day. Wow. Kirpalov, the collector. Interesting. Wow. This is cool. Hmm. This is cool. On auctions. research at on auctions, research and appraisal, object cataloging, auction events management. Contributing author on the history of modern art. The collector. Hmm. Date back to ancient Rome. Celtic queen who supported the Romans. Persuasion, that shaped modern rhetoric. I'm actually curious if we can find Agnes Martin lectures. To be an artist, you look, you perceive, you recognize what's going on through your mind. Living above the line, happiness and love, and the necessity of self awareness before creating. Finding the grit. Inner experience on ideas. Art is about inner experience on ideas, she said. Painting emerges from what's going on in the mind, not formal subjects. Living above the line. Happiness, innocence, and perception as central to art. The grid in her work wasn't about geometry, but about conveying subtle emotion and infinity. Minimalism versus expression. She resisted minimalist labeling, emphasizing abstract, expressionist roots and emotional content. Beauty, motivation, inspiration, and the artist mindset. And it is not ideas, everything you feel and everything you see and everything that your whole life goes through your mind, you know? But you have to recognize it and go with it and really feel it. I believe in living above the line. Above the line is happiness and love, you know? Below the line is all sadness and destruction and unhappiness, and I don't go down below the line for anything. In a number of introduction. How long is this? Wow. Share her unique point of view in a number of interviews and lectures over the last 4 decades of her career. In them, she consistently advocated for an unencumbered life and the pursuit of an experience of perfection and beauty, the results only from a deep state of self awareness. Remote mesa outside of the small town of Cuba. Part of the Video Data Bank, collection of interviews with contemporary artists founded by Blumenthal and Horsfield, which is housed at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. In these excerpts, Martin discusses the concept of truth, the responsibilities of the artist, handling failure, and the importance of understanding one's own mind. A lot of people will think that social understanding or something like that is going to lead us to the truth, but it isn't. It is understanding of yourself, and for that to make a beginning on that, you have to look in your mind and see what you are thinking about, because the truth is, you are unconscious of your own thoughts until you catch yourself. You can be in an unconscious state and pained because whatever is in your mind and not the subject matter, but the feelings that you have related to the subject matter is what you are going to paint. So the beginning is not actually painting, the beginning of painting is not you put down. The beginning of painting is not you put down green and then you like pink and you put down pink. Painting's not about that any more than music is about this sound and that sound. It is really, it's a whole thing, but it's something that you can't resist putting on, representing. And it's something that drives you to expression and it's irresistible. People are able to make a response to music very easily and very accurately. And I think it is the highest form of art because with 8 notes they express everything that we have ever experienced. You look, you perceive, you recognize what is going through your mind, and it is not ideas, everything you feel and everything you see and everything that your whole life goes through your mind. But you have to recognize it and go with it and really feel it. It takes time. See, you finish painting the painting and then you turn it to the wall. I mean, you say, does it have it or doesn't it have it? If it doesn't have it, you throw it away. But if you think it has it, you turn it to the wall. And then when you have made some more work, then you turn them all over and you again try to see exactly what it does mean and just exactly how effectively you have rendered this meaning. The artist need feel no responsibility for the progress or uplift of anybody. They have got to come ready just like the artist was ready for his inspiration. If they can't respond, the artist work and responds himself. And then other people come and see and respond. It does happen. And there's developing awareness, and each development is an inspiration. It makes a change in your expression. The best thing about it though is that it tells us the next thing to do, and without it we feel lost and we feel very bad. We think, oh, what shall I do and what shall I do and why was I ever born and everything. But the thing is that not only in artwork but in life itself we wait in readiness and with patience for the next step, in awareness of truth, of reality. The revelation of truth is a process of life. When you get distracted with this and that and people say look at this and look at that, and you are looking every way and you are spreading yourself out and you allow yourself to distract your mind entirely, you will soon feel as though you are terribly lost and frustrated. When you get distracted with this and that and people say look at this and look at that and you are looking every way and you're spreading yourself out and you allow people to distract your mind entirely, you will soon feel as though you are terribly lost and frustrated because you have left the process of the revelation of truth or the seeking of truth or whatever you want to call it. You have left the path of life. It isn't the mysterious thing that people make it out to be the path. You have to find out what your reaction to life is. When you find out about yourself and your reaction to life, then you will know the truth. When you find out about yourself and your reaction to life, then you will know the truth. The artist has to have absolute awareness of what he does. If you're desperate and your inspiration is not coming through, then you probably will fall back on the illustration of an idea. If you're an artist, when you get finished with that, you will be able to sit back and say, it isn't anything. It doesn't, it just doesn't have it. It just isn't anything. It's just like a blank. It all comes from attempting to illustrate from an idea instead of the experience coming right through. Now, the way to have the experience come right through is that you simply have to be able to clear your mind so it can get through. Anger, all the passions, they are not real. They are what I call the exhaustibles. All the exhaustible things like anger, You know how quickly it passes. Even the sense of seeing beauty is a very exhaustible thing. Seeing it with your eye, if you see something that looks very, very beautiful, but you kept your eye on that and looked and looked and looked, the beauty will disappear from it because the eye is exhaustible. But then the inexhaustibles, they are within the mind, you see, and the beauty that you see within the mind, it really never disappears. Now, the inexhaustibles, they go on forever. That's reality. They go on without change, but anything that is exhaustible is not real. We start out with high hopes because people have taught us that around just around the corner is happiness and contentment, and all you have to do is be good and try hard and all that. Well, you find out that you can be just as good as you possibly can be, and I mean, you try as hard as you possibly can try, and you still have, the same old thing. You have failures and successes now. Some things fail and others succeed. Well, then you can get quite desperate, you know, and you think, I'm going to work and work and I'm not going to have any failures, right? But then you find out that failures are inevitable, that you cannot possibly, none of us, you can't even draw a straight line. You know what? You know that. And you can have things and you can have all days in which you are sunny and good natured and everything like that. And you can be sweet to people and you can please people either. Well, that is the development. The development is of oneself. I don't know why it is that people have a tendency to doubt their own mind, to neglect your own mind. That's like to neglect your consciousness. That's like to give up all hope of joy and happiness, really. You are the only one that can discover for you the meaning of anything, what it means to you. By that, I don't mean intellectual meaning, I mean what it means, how it makes you feel. You have to see whether you really are happy or not, whether you really are sad or not, and you have to investigate what goes through your mind. The adventurous state of mind is a high house. To enjoy life, the adventurous state of mind must be grasped and maintained. The essential feature of adventure is that it is a going forward into unknown territory. The essential feature of adventure is that it is a going forward into unknown territory. The joy of adventure is unaccountable. This is the attractiveness of artwork. It is adventurous, strenuous, and joyful. It's about adventure. The underside of the leaf, cool in shadows, sublimely unemphatic. Hold on, I need my glasses. Smiling of innocence. The frailest stems quivering in light, bend and break in silence. This poem, like the paintings, is not really about nature. It is not what is seen, it is what is known forever in the mind. Artist in residence at the Shohegan School. Diverse points of view and unhindered creativity was the perfect venue for Martin to share distinctive beliefs on beauty, the mind, and art making. The following snips of her lecture, given during her show, Kagan. When I think of art, I think of beauty. Beauty is the mystery of life. It is in the mind, not in the eye. In our minds, we have an awareness of perfection that leads us on. The response to beauty, is emotion. Sometimes very subtle emotions of which we are almost not aware, and sometimes our most powerful emotions. Beauty is very much broader than just to the eye. It is our whole positive response to life. An artist is fortunate in that his work is the inner contemplation of beauty, of perfection in life. We cannot make anything perfectly, but with inner contemplation of perfection, we can suggest it. Although we are all different, we all respond to each other's suggestions of perfection, and we enjoy the same response as the artist. It is the inner contemplation, the wanting to respond to life, that opens our eyes to what is already in the mind. We contemplate reality with a sense of beauty as though it were perfect. We are also able to contemplate non objective beauty. I'm very anxious for you to understand what I mean by non objective experiences. Say that you went blind, very depressing, but you would still have a very exciting emotional life. That is a non objective experience. Everything is contemplated in the mind without meditation. We make a very complicated response just to look at a floating branch, evokes very complicated objective and non objective responses. The artist must slow all this down mentally. It is this mental experience that makes the representation of beauty possible. The part of mind in which we experience the perfection of beauty is not the intellect. The intellect is the part of the mind that calculates, compares, associates, classifies, and decides according to the facts. It is very different from the other part of the mind where we simply wonder what to do and the answer comes to us without any evidence. And if we sincerely want to do a difficult thing, we call the answer inspiration. Alone and in silence, the mind rises up from worldly concerns to considerations of the truth about life. The truth about life is not spiritual, it is the truth about this life. It is the real answer to a zest for living and our faith in life. It is also the best condition of mind for inspiration. Zest for living and faith in life are non objective experiences, as is happiness. You may feel all of these without a material cause. We can wake up happy for no reason and be full of zest without thinking of anything. I want to urge you to an awareness of such feelings, and I want to urge you to go in search of yourself. You have been thoroughly conditioned since the day you were born, so it is hard to find out what you think, but it is possible. By questioning your own mind, it is possible to have absolutely original thoughts, to have an absolutely original point of view. What you want to find out is what you want and what you do not want. When you give up what you do not want, you take a move forward in life. Your conditioning has taught you to identify with others, their emotions, and their needs. I urge you to look to yourself. In our convention, it is particularly difficult for women, but still it has to be done. The purpose of life is to know your true unconditioned self. In the middle of the work of art, an artist often feels that he's failing, interfering with his inspiration. That is a mistake. The mistake. It is best to push on through. Such works frequently turn out to be the best. To fail is a very ordinary experience for an artist. To fail and still go on makes his character. Most people cannot bear to fail even once they think of security. We always think our output will be enormous, but because of failures, it turns out to be quite small. The inner eye contemplates all that you have ever seen, and the emotions rise as the inner eye operates. And we observe objectively, but the real life of the work depends on the simultaneous inner experience. I urge you to discover your inner experiences when you are not working. You can realize the necessity of being alone at times. To walk alone is very different from walking with others. It is necessary to be alone to visualize your work in your mind, to see your direction. Perhaps before you go to sleep, you can visualize what you are making and have inspiration. The thing to do is to learn to accept the truth as it comes into your mind. Give up logic, deductions, and application and reference. Do not give serious attention to what others think. Do not take under consideration the art scene. You must have complete independence of mind. If an artist looks outward in life, we say that his work is visual, and that's not a compliment. And if this work is intellectual, we say that it's brilliant, and that's not a compliment. And if it is made with the inner eye and the emotions that go with it, we all agree that that is the work with the most value. And if it is made with inner eye and the emotions that go with it, we all agree that that is the work with the most value. Although I have come to the end, I just want to say again that the intellect has nothing to do with artwork, and you're going to live lives of emotion with hardly a thought crossing your mind. Wow. Filmmaker Leon Davigdor interviewed Agnes Martin at his studios in Taos, New Mexico. Wow, 2002, so she was like 90 years old. fundamental human experiences such as innocence, happiness, and love. I was sitting and thinking about innocence. As a matter of fact, I was thinking of innocence of trees. I thought it was quite easy to be innocent if you are a tree. And into my mind there came a grid, lines this way and lines that way. And I thought, my goodness, am I supposed to paint that? Nobody will ever think it's a painting. But at least it's non objective, completely abstract. So I painted it 6 feet square. And then I offered it to the Museum of Modern Art, and they took it. My very first painting. There's no indication or hint about the material world in my painting. No, I don't paint about the world. Everybody else is painting about the world. That's enough. I'm simply painting concrete representation of abstract emotions such as innocent love, ordinary happiness. I do want an emotional response, and I paint about emotions, not about lines. The truth is that it's not the lines that express the emotion, it's the scale of the composition. If you go into a room that has perfect scale, you feel it. And it's the same with a painting. If the painting has perfect scale, it moves you. And you have different scale to show different emotions. It's the space between the lines that counts. I painted for 20 years without liking them very much. And I burned them at the end of every year. For 20 years, I burned the whole bunch because I didn't want them to get in the market. And well, sometimes when I was starving, I used to sell one cheap, but I always regretted because you hate to think of a painting in somebody's house that you don't like well enough. You know, my mother went to church, but she didn't say anything about whether we could go to church or not. My grandfather was very religious, but we did not go. I have my own religion. It suits me. I made it up myself. I read all about everybody else's religion before I settle on mine. It's a secret religion. You don't go out looking for converts or anything like that. Well, I guess I can tell you. It's about love, not God. There's no God, but just love. That's all I'm going to tell you. It's a secret. The truth is that I have lived on an even keel. I don't go down and I don't go up. I believe in living above the line. Above the line is happiness and love. Below the line is all sadness and destruction and unhappiness. And I don't go down below the line for anything.